he had said on page 18, 19, that to appreciate the value of doing this introspection, to reflect on the past or on what you're about to do, the only one who can appreciate that is the one already who has been extricated from the control of the Yetzer Hara. Because that person has a sense of right and wrong, and he understands the value of understanding what your actions are. A person doesn't sense the wrong in what you do, so does it really make a difference? If I think about it, if I analyze it, if I evaluate, it's all irrelevant. He says, because the Yetzer Hara has the ability to blind a person, to desensitize a person, and it's like a blind man, it's like a person walking in the dark. That although they're pitfalls, you don't even realize that the pitfalls are there. So the person who's under the control of the Yetzer Hara, because he's lacking these sensitivities, even if you reflect on it, it doesn't mean anything. You know, the tefillah weren't exactly in place. I wasn't mechaven. It's not the end of the world. Most people. Not mechaven Shmoneh Esrei. Okay? I'm not there yet. But why is there an urgency to get there? The answer is because it doesn't make that much of a difference. But a person who's not under the influence of the Yetzer Hara, he has a sense of the value of that, so there is an urgency. The internalization, the experience of whatever, it's a different experience. That's what he had said. He says, David Melech says, we say this in Baruch Nafshi, Rosh Chodesh, Toshish choshech v'loilo. He draws darkness and it becomes night. What is that referring to? Ze olam hazeh. Olam hazeh is compared to nighttime. Shedoma l'laylo, v'ovin kamen nifla maimer amiti hazeh, l'misha mamek lovinzeh. He says, how wondrous and profound is this true statement for the one who actually delves to try to understand it. That this world is what is Doma L'Laylo.
Is that such an extraordinary statement?
Of course, what is night? So he will explain. What is night? Night is distortion, right? Distortion, or one just doesn't even realize things that exist out there. You live your life. The wrong is distorted, and you believe it's right, and the right is distorted. You believe it's what? It's wrong. The wrong becomes right, and the right becomes wrong. And the many things you don't even realize that you're even doing them. That's how out of touch you are with the. That's how dark it is. But the question is, how dark is that darkness? How dark that darkness is, regardless. There's no perfect tzaddik. So evidently the darkness impairs the clear vision of even the tzaddik, because he fails once in a while also. But the one who's not the tzaddik, he doesn't even have a sense of that he's doing wrong. He even may justify the wrong to be right and be a mitzvah. This is the Rambam, Hilchos Tshuva. Before the Churban Abayis, they told the Navi. The Navi said, Omer la or choshech v'choshech or. They said darkness is light and light is darkness. Everything was backwards. And he says afterwards, Mar mosuk, mosuk mar. What's bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter.
Is darkness created, or is darkness just a lack of light?
Put it this way, it's a lack, of course, it's a lack of light, right? Evidently, you light and you illuminate the darkness. But the context that there should be darkness, that's part of creation, right? How do you have darkness? There's no state that you could have darkness. There's a Ramban, famous Ramban, he argues with Rashi. Rashi learns, Vayavlo Shem ben or ben achoshech, right? V'yer v'voker. We said Yor. So Rashi learns that the Yavdel is going on, discerning between the daytime period and nighttime period. But what is the nighttime period? A lack of light, right? The Ramban says, Vayavdel means you divide, it has to be an entity. Laila is an entity. So he says over there that there's darkness, you have choshech shel Gehenim. There's black fire in hell. And that was there at the nighttime period. Being exposed to that. He separated that. that has its own boundary, and the other one has its boundaries, and they don't cross over. As a result of the darkness of night, one can make one of two mistakes. It affects the eye person. It's so dark you don't even notice anything's out there. So it's not a distortion of something. You see nothing. That's how dark it is. It'll mislead you. It'll distort the reality. You see a pillar and you think it's a human being. Vice versa. A person turns out to be a pillar. Meaning that's a distortion of reality. Either you see nothing, or whatever you see is distorted. It's a story many years ago. There was a person who was one of the Gedolei Yisrael. We have very little written from him. His name was Reb Meshulam Igra. His last name was Igra. And he was one of the greatest minds in the 1800s, Reb Meshulam Igra. And when he studied, he was fully immersed. He didn't waste a moment. And he really wasn't in touch with the amenities of this world. So a very wealthy man says, we have the perfect shidduch for you. The Beis HaLevi suggested, I think it was the Beis HaLevi. Reb Meshulam Igra was the Beis HaLevi. He should be the one for this very wealthy man's daughter. Okay? Comes to his house. They have sugar on the table because they're going to offer him a cup of coffee. They have some other things. He never ate sugar in his life. That's how poor he was. So the sugar had the sugar receptacle had a spoon in it. So he's eating sugar out of the bowl. He thinks he's supposed to eat the sugar. He never ate sugar in his life. The girl comes in, and she sees this kind of behavior. She's raised in a very wealthy, cultured family. She says, "The man is a primitive human being." She told the father, and the father said, "I understand. It's not for you." Many years later, the father had a din Torah, and now Reb Meshulam Igra already, he's an established Gadol B'Yisrael, he's one of the leading Torah sages. And he comes, and he looked faintly familiar. And when he realized who it was, and this man could have been his son-in-law, he just fainted. On the spot, he fainted. That he didn't realize what he passed up. To have this kind of man, one of a kind of personality, human being, Talmud Chacham, to pass up because of that nonsensical, because he never ate sugar before in his life, so therefore he thought he's supposed to eat it. That's the reason to pass on such a thing. It was an opportunity which was irreplaceable. So sometimes we see things, we don't even see them. That's how dark the darkness is. You totally overshoot the runway. No, it's like the pilot lands in the river rather than on the runway. Because the river, when it's night, it looks like a continuum of the runway, but you're going into the river. And you only realize after, when you become submerged, and then you realize where you're at, maybe. Remember when the Pan Am, when it exploded in midair, they said, how did the people feel any, have any pain? They said it was like a heartbeat. That when it exploded, instantaneously they died. There was no sense of pain whatsoever. That's how quick it was. Like a blink of an eye. Understand? It could be so dark, you could live your life, you don't even realize what you're doing to yourself, and after as many years you have, you believe what you believe, and that's irrelevant. Remember there was what's his name? He was a maestro, Arthur Rubinstein. Passed away when he died. I mean, he was the way that passed. When he died, he was in his 90s. And I haven't read Time magazine in about 28 years, 29 years, because of its value. I wouldn't pick it up, open it. So they had an obituary. He passed away. He died 28, 29 years ago. The man was a philanderer. He was a ladies' man when he was in his 90s. He didn't behave. As you know, they used to refer to people like that. A dirty old man. That's what he was. And he wrote him, that they quoted him, that he never regretted anything he did in his life, including all his frivolities. Understand? I mean, he knew he was a Jew. I mean, he was known he was a Jew. Didn't regret. He said, I regret nothing. So how out of touch was that man? That means no conscience ever. So he's totally, so what, he's in the dark. He's so blind, you know. Person's blind. He says, "I never saw light." Of course, you never saw light because you're blind. That's how dark this world could be. How desensitized the person could be. To be continued. You know, something in Israel, they have they used to call Peace for Now movement. You have people in Israel, Jews being killed by terrorists, and yet there is a group in Israel protesting the government how they have a right to deny the Arabs certain freedoms. You know, it doesn't make sense. Your brothers are being murdered, children, terrorists. I mean, in the most horrific way. And what, you're taking up their cause? Does that make sense? These people are being sick. A person can be so infected with insanity, and it's an indication that they're riddled with evil. It's Ra. It's literally Ra. That's what it is.
I just heard in the last week or so, there's a yeshiva called
Sounds familiar.
It's a yeshiva.
It's not Riverdale. Okay, okay.
It's a yeshiva that comes to our yeshivas, my Orthodox yeshivas, recruiting kids for their year in Israel.
Yeah.
So the program is a little bit of learning, but it's, looking at the other side. It's a very open-minded.
To appreciate the other side.
So they spend afternoons with Palestinian kids and Arab villages.
And the schools allow these guys in?
No, they don't know.
So somebody has.
It just became knowledge that this is what the program was. That they guys that under the idea of a little bit of